Good evening. We are going to open the Sausalito Marin City School District Board meeting March 11th, 2020 at 7 p.m. And this is a time if you would like to address the board on anything that is not on the closed agenda, you can do so now. That's on it. You know what I mean. Seeing as though there are no cards, we're going to go into close. Thank you. We shall return. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here tonight. We realize that you can be somewhere else, quite frankly, specifically given the climate of where our country is. So we just encourage you to wash your hands at least 20 seconds. And so we are coming back into open session, and there is nothing to report out from our closed session. I'm going to invite you to stand with us as we do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag that's on the stage. Ms. Van Ost, if you would lead us off, please.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd like to invite everybody to join us in a brief moment of mindfulness. I will strike the chime, invite everybody to take 3 deep breaths, inhaling for a count of 8, exhaling for a count of 4, or 6-3 if you have diminished lung capacity for any reason. I want to invite you to open your eyes, come back into the room. 4.03.
Thank you so much. It's an opportunity to for reorganization. Is there anything from the diocese to?
I'll move approval of the agenda.
I actually have a few revisions to the minutes of the 2/13 board meeting, so I ask that that be removed from the consent agenda.
We had a request in our last meeting to move items that people are likely to speak on, like budget, to the earlier part of our agenda. I personally think we should honor that kind of request. I don't know if you want it wrapped in a motion or separate. I'm happy to entertain it either way.
Let's see where it's at.
So
Almost at the
10.01.
end, yeah.
I mean, I think tonight's going to go pretty fast, but we could move both the minutes out of the consent agenda and 10.01 could be moved up right after correspondence.
Would you like to make a motion on that?
I'll move that we remove 8.02 from the consent agenda and 10.01 to be right after 6.01.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Ayes have it. That brings us to oral communications. This is a time that the public can come before the board with subject matters that are not on the agenda. And Mr. Riley, is this where you wanted to? Yes. Okay. Over here? Yes, sir. Right. Okay, no worries. Sorry, Ms. Riley.
Okay. Good evening. Tom Riley, Sausalito City Council member. Thank you for your time. Sausalito resident for 15 years. Parent of a 3rd grade student who is not in school in our district. I want to give you full disclosure of my background. My son goes to school 40 minutes north of here in a special education program. We do aspire, hopefully next year or year after, for him to come into our district. My wife has toured this school and this campus 4 times. we're encouraged and have questions about the path forward. But I'm here on behalf of City Council. Here's what I have learned after attending unification, a desegregation meeting, the Willow Creek Board meeting, and being here and meeting many community members. It's important to the city of Sausalito, and of course Marin City, that we have a high-performing K-8 school in our district. We believe that a high-performing school comes from a well-integrated and very diverse campus that makes us not only high-performing because of our diversity, but also competitive to attract students into our district. And I think I've seen WCA attract students because of its diversity, and I've been admired by that. We believe unification and integration of our two campuses is the right thing. I'm very impressed that we are a well-funded district. So there's two things, and I don't see a 3-minute clock here, but I assume I'm coming up on 3 minutes, minute 32. There's two things I've observed. And I'm new to this process, and I've been asked to be a liaison to you on behalf of City Council along with Councilmember Joe Burns. Two things I've observed. It's important that we retain our students in this district and we retain our teachers in this district. And I think we're at risk of both of those. And if we don't change the course, as we merge into one school, we can merge into one larger segregated campus. And I do not want us to take that path. At Willow Creek Academy, I changed their board, and their current budget is going to require laying off of 17 staff and teachers. And that depended on raising $750,000 of fundraising when they've never done more than $300,000 in the past. So we're looking at more. We can't attract teachers into this community because of the cost. And yet we're going to get rid of 17 who live here. I saw teachers in tears who want to keep their jobs. In the desegregation meeting, I saw a plan and a vision that it took what you presented that I believe in, but it requires more teachers. And yet we're going to get rid of teachers we have that are respected and high performing. Secondly, we want to retain all of our high potential students for a well integrated and diverse campus. And we've scared away 45 of them, 10% of our district. So my recommendation is two things. We need to fund our one campus, WCA, to retain their teachers so we have them when we unify our schools. And two, we need to retain our students by having clarity on our unification plan, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, what campuses, because I'm in that camp. And I can't bring my student, my son, who is a student, to this without having clarity of vision. So that's what I ask. Let's fund our current schools and keep our teachers, and let's keep our students with clarity of what this unification plan is. And I believe in the unification plan. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Damian Morgan. It's all right, Damian, we got you.
Good evening, everyone. Damian Morgan. I just give you an update regarding the basketball team. This is my second year coaching the district basketball team. Beginning of the year, we had approximately 50 kids come out to try out for the team. There were 4 teams, a 7th, 8th combination boys, 7th, 8th combination girls. 7th, 8th boys and a 7th, 8th girls, 5th and 6th boys, 5th and 6th girls. So 4 teams total. I would say a solid 40, close to 40 kids played most of the games, all 4 teams combined, about 9 to 10 per team, give and take. Kids were engaged, I would say half from Bayside MLK, half from Willow Creek, about 20 per school. Kids got along well, season was great. So far to this point, we had 2 playoffs, which was the 5th and 6th boys won the championship, and the 5th and 6th girls came up a little bit short. Now, as it stands today, we had playoffs for the 7th and 8th boys and girls, and I have a great gut feeling that we were going to win the championship on both teams, but it was canceled. So just give you everyone a heads up that there are no playoffs for both teams. To no surprise, I'm sure it was canceled due to our, what's going on in the world today. So that's it. That's my basketball wrap up, and I look forward to next year. And we have some championship teams around here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I'm going to take the odd and add to some oral communications, if that's all right. I wanted to make sure that everybody took a moment to acknowledge the loss of a lifetime community member and former school board member, Ms. Dolores Talley. She passed on Saturday, March the 7th, at the age of 74. And although I didn't have time when I got this news to do something more formal for this agenda, I would like to encourage us to think about adopting a resolution acknowledging her service to this community and the school board. She continued to volunteer in our classrooms up until last school year. And so she put in a lot of time and a lot of spirit and a lot of energy to the kids and the school, and I hope that we can do something more formally to honor her other than me sharing this evening. The other piece that I wanted to offer in oral communications is that in a future board meeting, I will be more formally announcing that we are officially a school district of choice for the 2021 school year. And that is important for us for many reasons. Most importantly, it means that when students choose to enroll in our school district from other areas, whether it's here in the county or from any other place, that they do not have to seek permission to leave their school district to enroll here. It means also that we, as a basic aid school district, will receive 70% of the LCFF funding that the school district in which they come from would normally receive, unless that school district is also a basic aid school district.
70%?
70%. And I believe for many reasons, some of which our city council guest outlined, that this is an important development for our school districts, and that it may help us reach some of the benchmarks in the settlement agreement with the Attorney General. And so I wanted to let you know that before it became any more public. And I will be following up with some recommendations around a resolution that specifies exactly how many students per year that we might look at accepting under being a district of choice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that report, Itoko. And I do want to say that Dolores Talley was an absolute staple in this community, legendary for a lot of people who know her very closely. So she is going to be dearly missed. Ms. Van Alst, did you have?
No, it was public comment. I wanted to talk about it, but we can't.
Is there any intent to come to the microphone for this item, 5.01? We're on oral communications before we press on. Seeing none, we're going to move on. That brings us to correspondence, 6.01. Unless there is some questions or concerns, there are no cards here regarding correspondence. And seeing no attempt to bring it forward, we're going to move on to 8.02.
I'd like to say something on correspondence, or Although I thought we
did.
actually moved, the next one should be 10.01, so my comment could apply to either one. We announced that no action was taken in closed, but we telegraphed pretty loud and clear last week that what is publicly known as the district and Willow Creek are in negotiations. The contents of the negotiations are confidential, but we had a lot of discussion last week about giving optimism as to where those might head. And without violating any confidence, I wanted to share a continued optimism despite a lack of announcement tonight, and share an optimism that we will conclude very quickly. So I know there are a number of people, I see a lot nodding in the audience tonight, that were expecting something, and I wanted to leave people with a feeling of, we're close. So with that, I think maybe we can move to our budget.
No, I believe that 8.02, the consent, she pulled that out of consent.
We did with the motion, but we also moved the budget right after 6.01.
I just want to point out, I think that
Thank
board
you.
comments were, I don't see them here.
Because it's a special
This is a
meeting.
special board meeting.
Oh, right.
Right.
Gotcha.
But there was I think
Yeah,
that
good.
Josh is responding to the correspondence on the budget. So.
Gotcha.
Or
Good.
the budget item, either way.
Right. Good job, Josh. Thank you.
So the air of optimism is smelling sweet, let's just say that. Dr. Clark.
Thank you. This is part 2 of the second interim budget presentation. I'd like to start with the community budget report. What I was thinking tonight was, I gave this presentation at last week's board meeting. The idea was just to go through with any of the changes and the questions that the board had. So for the community budget, those numbers stay the same. One of the things on page 4, what I did was break apart restricted maintenance, the required 3%, and then we have an additional 2.9% on top of that. That's our contribution to 8150. What was the original document had those two numbers together for $435,000, and now you can see those two are separated out. The required is 3%. That's what we're required to contribute to routine restricted maintenance 8150, but we as a district contribute more to pay for the director, the 2 custodians, the maintenance, and all the supplies and materials that go with keeping our campus as best as we can with those funds. Moving forward, Board Member Van Elst asked a good question about basic aid supplement calculation. That was a great learning for me. It was a good opportunity. I split apart the LCFF state aid just under the blue band you see there. The LCFF state aid current year, just over $900,000, the basic aid fair share, which is a reduction that the state takes. And then you can see underneath that the basic aid supplement calculation for this school year right now is $227,000, down from $311,000, I believe, when we did adopted budget, and that's because that number changes as the charter school enrollment continues to decrease. That number gets updated at each reporting period as well. So you can see those 3 numbers are specified out, specified. One of the other questions we had was on local revenues, the local resources. You can see kind of near the bottom, the all other local revenues. We had 2 lines, all other local revenues unrestricted for $556,000. That's at the very bottom of this slide. And then you can see the next section, which was all other local revenues restricted for right at $800,000. Those were just 2 single lines. And so what we've done is gone back in and detailed that out, and you can see each one of those sources for the numbers, for the amounts for those 2 line items. WCA's oversight fee, Prop 39, and utilities payment are the big portion of this unrestricted. And very happily, the book fair reported almost $700 worth of revenue this year, which I was been told that was a good year, so very excited. And then the second group, which was the restricted, this is WCA's special ed payment is the vast majority of it, and then a few bits and pieces, and then the Moraine Community Foundation, their contribution to us as a school district. On the slide, we added a revenues by major category slide at the board member's request, and we also added in the 3 columns that you see that have color in the titles. Originally, it was the adopted budget, first interim and second interim, with the 4 major sources of revenue that come into the district. And in those 3 colored titled columns, you can see the change from first adopted to first interim, working from right to left. So from adopted to first interim, there was a change of about $413,000. And then moving to the left, in the purple column, the change from first interim to second interim, we got about $230,000. And then in that final column on the left side, the change from adopted to second, and that growth was about $646,000 in revenue. Onward, we got to services and other operating expenditures, which are in the major object code in the SAC structure, is the 5,000s. And so what we've done is detailed that out. If I remember correctly, on the document last week, it had a line item, total services and other operating expenditures, right at 1.5 million, that 1.486 you see right there. And so what we've done is gone back in and broken those out by object codes with their titles, and it gives the, it's actually a really nice piece of information. It gives the community really some more details about where the money has been budgeted to spend. And remember, these are budgeted expenditures. Steve just pointed out that they've canceled another conference that our CSA staff was going to in the next month. And so some of those line items for professional development and travels and conferences will end up being reduced as we get to year's end, because we will not realize those expenditures. For the most part, these are all those expenses: travel, conferences, the utilities, equipment, field trips, fingerprinting. Those are smaller, and then legal service, which you can see right at the very bottom of this page, right at $300,000. And as we go to the next page, most part is a huge chunk goes to the Attorney General's. Those are all in the 5,800s at the moment. And then you can see 5840, which is other contracted services, right there near the top. And then also 5849, which is professional consulting. Those are big numbers. 5840, software programs that we have: Blackboard, Verizon. There's a sewer bill in here, Frontline. Panorama Education, which does research for us. Joyful Mind Project. We have the Joyful Mind that we have. Oh my gosh, total blank.
Mindful Schools.
Chelsea. Yeah, Chelsea comes. The Seneca contract is in here as well. Contract for the behavioral services is in here. The ACES money expenses in here as well, $76,000. Those are some of the bigger ones for 5840. And then 5849, the bulk of that $100,000 is our technology contract for $86,000. So that breaks that apart. And then you get into expenditures. This page was already included in the original community budget, but we've added those 3 columns that have color across the top. And it's the same idea, working from right to left. That first color, which is orange on my page, but really looks like brown up there, is the change from adopted to first interim. And then you go over into the purple column, it's first interim to second interim. And then the very first column is the change from adopted to second interim. And then the rest of those slides are the other funds, which none of those changed.
I think these changes are great, especially in such short time.
Yeah. Thank you.
The detail breakout is particularly nice. It would be nice to include the same type of columns you did at the high level on the detail.
The high level who?
So your high-level summary, which we were just looking at with the orange, blue, orange, to include that on your detail breakouts, if the reporting makes it easy, would let you see kind of what's happening at a detail level as we move through a budget. If that's an easy request, I assume it is, but I don't know. Otherwise, that looked fantastic.
It's just a matter of getting set up for the first time, and once it is, then, yeah, it would be pretty simple.
Yeah, I concur. Thank you so much, for that was a short period of time. That's exactly what I was asking for. And I think, what's that?
That's what Saturdays are for.
Oh. Accounting on Saturday, what better fun can you have? And then along the lines of what Josh is saying, I think laying out the changes help us identify kind of what are one-time expenditures versus ongoing expenses that help with, obviously, with budgeting. And that was kind of my additional questions. I don't know if you're going to go through the other presentation as well.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So Brandon, you want to put up the other one, please?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. So this is the actual PowerPoint presentation that we gave last week, and I believe the first change comes on page 7. All I did was clarify the estimated actual and added the estimated actual, the actual to date plus the encumbrance to date, and you can see for the 1920 year one, right now we have budgeted 100% of the expenditures. We do know, as we spoke last week, that we do know that we're not going to spend all of the money for counseling and this current school year, so there'll be some money that comes out of this that rolls forward for the next year. Sorry. And I just licked my finger and I'm not supposed to do that.
This one, if I could add a comment, I think we would my suggestion was to add the basic aid supplemental to this slide because it offsets the in lieu.
Oh, on slide 9?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
No, it's okay.
The question, Caroline?
So Dr. Clark was mentioning the basic aid supplemental, and that's the money that the district gets from the other districts where Willow Creek has out-of-district students that come from LCFF or revenue limit districts, and we get reimbursed 70%. It's a horrible term, but it's called a basic aid supplemental, which is I guess the county SACS term for it. And I was just suggesting to add it to this slide because essentially it's a reimbursement to the district for a share of the in lieu that we give to Willow Creek for the out-of-district students. So it offsets some of the in lieu payment. And it's
227
227 right now.
So the change on this slide, actually, last week we showed as the recipient column for the after-school ACES program, I had left off the school district's portion of it, which is the $76,000 number you see. So now that's been added in. I did it again. All right, so now we get into this section, which was, I think, the bulk of the changes for this one. On this column, on this slide, this is the change from first interim to second interim, and you see the total revenues, total expenditures, and the change. Then we come to this slide. These are the same thing, the change from first interim to second interim, just looking at the revenues. And so these were major changes to the revenue from first interim to second interim, and we listed out more of the more details to get to that $232,000 number. Then we added this slide. This is adopted to second interim. And those numbers, of course, then the revenues, the change from adopted to second interim right at $650,000. And those are the big items that get us close to that number itself. The charter school in lieu is by far just over half. Then going on, we're in the expenditure side. This is first interim to second interim, the change from first to second to get to that $250,000, $257,000. And then this is expenditures from adopted to second interim, and I had the wrong number at the first presentation. and did not notice it until I was doing this correction. If you look in the blue column under expenditures, the adopted for June 19, it shows $6.5 million. There's a note just under that table. At the March 5th board meeting, I did not include the transfer of the $354,000, and the number was 6.95. But that math was the change from adopted to second interim turned out to be like 1.2, which was really big. So when doing this correction, adding these slides, it was like, oh no, I used the wrong number in the right box, but the wrong number, which made that change look really dramatic.
You found your 400,000.
Yeah. Oh, so I can laugh. So, so now from adopted second, we listed a lot more details underneath that to explain that $800,000 difference in expenditures. And
Which I assume made moot that whole request to break down the 400,000, right? I mean, that's...
yes,
I think
yeah, because that was hard to get to, and it wasn't there in the big number. When you got into this, well, actually, it was when I went to redo the slide to, move around and start reformatting. It was, wait, that number doesn't, wait, what? And that was it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, thank you. Yeah. And then, if memory serves, that was the last change from the board meeting. And those are the reserves, and that's the MYP, and that hasn't changed.
Thank you. And I do have some questions on 15, now that I have all the detail.
Yes.
First of all, thank you again for this. I got pretty close to your number when I added them all up, so we're good. One thing that was hard for me to link up as I went through these is which expenditure line item these would fall under. So I don't know if it's easy enough to group them by, whether it's certificated or classified or other services and contracts, that kind of thing.
That's how they came about. It was about making them fit on a page.
Yeah.
And started moving stuff around because this was a short one, this is a long one.
Do what I do, just shrink the font.
But they came through out of the major objects, so
Yeah.
that's easy to do.
Yeah, perfect. And then, as I was going through these, I was curious which of them were one-time expenditures versus ongoing. For example, the student success coach, 64,000, I assume that's ongoing.
At the moment, it will be ongoing unless
Right.
there's a change in the student's IEP correctly.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'd like to just run through these quickly. The temporary office accounting, that was just a one-time. We
It
may
goes to
renew
June.
it, but that was one time. Utilities, 20,000.
That
that-
was 20,000 that we didn't encumber, and so it didn't show up as a budgeted expense.
So we needed to add it. It's likely going to be ongoing.
Right. So it will definitely be ongoing.
Okay. Equipment repair,
That's unknown. I mean, equipment breaks, we have to repair it. If it doesn't.
but is it ongoing or is it a one-time?
There is money in the equipment repair budget. It's not very much, and I think this was less than what was actually budgeted, or more than what was actually budgeted. I said that the wrong way.
So do we expect this kind of increase to continue as part of that ongoing budget, or is it a one-time add for something unexpected?
I think for this one, I would say it was a one-time add for this amount, because I think the actual budget was $5,000 for
Yeah.
equipment repair.
Okay.
And
And then the special education staff under budgeted, I assume that's going to be ongoing.
it will be ongoing.
Okay. ESSA CSI supplies cost, 85,000.
That will end this year. That's all, that
that's
has to be
one time?
spent by June.
Okay. Field renovation, I know that was from a grant, so that'll be done.
One time.
Textbook replacement, one time.
This is every year for buying books that are damaged, broken, new, changes in enrollment. We need another, 7 textbooks in 3rd grade.
Got it.
Right.
Attorney General settlement, I think I skipped a line. That's ongoing for 5 years. Right?
Right, correct.
Special education transportation,
Right. That's the current amount for this year, and we know it's going to go up by another, I think, right at another 25,000 for next school year.
okay.
So that's ongoing.
And then computer equipment, 5,000.
That was, those were one-time purchases this year, but there will be computer equipment purchase next year.
Okay. History and language art textbook, 31,000.
That'll be one-time this year.
Okay. Legal fees, hopefully one time.
I'd
Hopefully.
like to get rid of those.
Professional development conferences, that'll be ongoing.
Right.
Teacher training,
There was a big, it was a big year this year for
Just
what's
conversation.
already been done and what's coming up. So hopefully that will be one time.
okay. Other contract services,
Those are just the kind of a ballpark contract services that we currently have. For the most part, they'll be ongoing, but they may not be that much.
okay. And the basic aid excess, that's one time.
That's over.
So I'm seeing 2,000, 25, 50, 100. About 400,000 in one time,
I'm sorry?
about 400,000 in one-time expenses.
I wasn't
Does that sound
keeping
like
track.
I mean, the 1.7, I just kind of added up
Oh,
quickly.
sure.
So half
Yeah.
is ongoing.
Yeah, half is ongoing and half
Could
looks
be.
like it's one time. Okay. Keep that in mind because I have a question when we get to the multi-year projection. Okay, thank you. And thank you very much for this.
Sure.
Really helpful, thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Ask and you shall receive.
That's all.
So any other questions?
Not on this.
Okay.
Are you finished going through
Yeah,
it?
I'd already gone through them all.
Okay.
Yeah, we're at the multi-year.
Yeah, I have I don't know if you're going to review the multi-year projection, and if not, then I have some questions about it.
Okay.
So in the multi-year projection, I'm looking at the expenditure side, and you don't have the detail. I'm looking at the SACS detail. And we have let's see, oh, that's the budget. Certificated salaries going from projected year total this year of $1.8 million to 2.173 next year. So that's a 334,000 increase in teacher salaries. And then I see under the unrestricted, it says we're going to add 2 teachers.
Mhm.
And so what was that for?
One was for, originally it was one for a preschool, and we put off for another year for preschool, at least the current plan. But it's for the 2 teachers that we're planning to have. One is going to be for intervention, and the other is going to be for the new TK, because we're going to split TK and K to have a TK class and a K class. So with the 2 teachers, the 2% step and column, which is an estimate, and the 2.5% salary increase, those things all added together.
Okay. And then classified is going up 120,000 from this year to next year.
We added the success coach, and then, of course, step and column from them, and then also the 2.5% raise.
Okay. And then services and supplies is only going up by 51,000, but as we went through, there's roughly 400,000 in one-time expenses. So typically when we have that, I usually see supplies going down.
Right.
But do we have other things that are going to take up 450,000 between this year and next year?
Are you doing, when you're talking about services, are you talking about the 5,000s?
Yeah.
Okay. Versus materials and supplies, the 4,000, just to make sure we're
Oh,
talking
yeah,
about the.
you're right, because I was looking at all expenditures total
Right.
for 400,000, but,
So in the MYP, when you get to years 2 and 3, unless there's a major change, you know it's an expense that's going away, or you know there's an expense that's coming. A lot of it is just, I hate to say it, is sometimes you start to balance the budget in the 4s and 5s. You start to make reductions. You know that this year, I'm making up numbers, you know that
Yeah.
this year we budgeted $100,000 worth of expenditures, but they only turn out to be 80. So there's some of the unspent or unrealized expenditures that'll roll forward for the next year, and you make that deduction. So a lot of times in these, won't be as much, or you may keep it very similar. There may be an opportunity for us to do some reductions in the materials and supplies and operating expenses. It's not a line item MYP for years 2 and 3 at second interim, but when we do budget adoption, it'll get more specific about what's really going to happen when we adopt 2021.
Okay, so these MYPs may include one-time expenses that we'll know as we, and also budget items that will be unspent, which will be adjusted as we go forward.
Right.
In which case, the out years may be reduced.
Correct.
For those, and assuming you don't have another replacement cost unexpected, we may increase surplus.
Correct, absolutely.
Okay.
Budgeting those expenditures in the out years, to me, is a much more conservative approach, because if we get really tight, budgeting years 2 and 3, and something was to happen, then we could be in trouble in that third year.
Right.
As we do get into the spring, I mean, a perfect example is travel and conferences are probably going to start to reduce. I made a reduction of some certificated budgeted expenditures, by $45,000 over the weekend to help soften the blow of the change that we thought was going to happen with the basic aid supplement money. And so those things will start to happen as we get closer and closer to June and we know it's coming to the end. Conversations I'll start to have with department managers and for the budget is, we budgeted $50,000 for that expense. You've only spent 10. What's the likelihood you're going to spend all of it? Is there something coming? Is there a big expense at the end of the year that we need to know about and hold that back? And if not, we'll start to pull that back and start to reduce those budgeted expenditures. Same way for revenues. If we know that money's coming, then we'll keep it. But if we know that money maybe is not coming or a planned revenue is not going to materialize, we'll start to reduce that as well. So we can get a better picture for estimated actuals for June.
Okay. And so I'm looking at, thank you for that. So I'm looking at total expenditures increasing about $480,000. And that's comprised right now primarily of $334,000 for certificated, $120,000 for classified. But built within that is $400,000 roughly of one-time expenditures this current year that were essentially right now, including in next year's budget as cushion, for lack of a better word, because by not reducing those amounts from this year's budget and assuming some sort of reduction for next year for the one-time expenditures, and you're leaving them in there, it leaves some sort of a cushion until year end and you start unwinding all those.
It does, absolutely. Yeah. There are some planned expenditures or I should say some proposed expenditures in years 2 and 3 that we know probably will not happen. But we also know that there's expenditures in there that aren't going to happen because they just won't happen. We budget for a full-time position and the person doesn't get hired until October.
Yeah.
So we budgeted a full position, but we were able to realize some savings from that budgeted expense. There are one-time expenditures that are rolling forward from 1920 into those out years that we'll start to clean up as we get to closer and closer to finishing this year.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I just had a question and clarification about how much of the sort of facilities costs. I mean, we had some pretty significant, I think, unexpected facilities costs this year. So that would be one of the other things that would come in as a one-time if we, something else happened and we had to.
And some of those facility costs we put into Fund 40.
Right.
And so Fund 40, we could continue to use that, or we could put it in here and start to find other funds.
Okay.
And start reducing. And as we get closer, we'll be able to reduce some of those budgeted expenditures. And so the reserve, right now we're looking at, or at least we're projecting a $112,000 surplus if we were to, close the books today. But we know that number, provided we stay on track with the planned expenditures, that number is probably going to be higher. because we know some of those budget expenditures just won't happen. And so if we knew that there was going to be a $50,000 facilities expense that needed to be paid for right now, and we wanted to use Fund 1, we have a little bit of cushion, and then we can start to go through some of those other budgeted expenditures and start to pull back, and it really gets into take 30 from here, take 40 from here, take 15 from here, and those aren't thousands. Those are going to be like, I mean, I did that with second interim, is add $4 to this budget line to cover the Social Security tax, and add $12 to this line to cover the Medicare, so we wouldn't have any negative numbers in the budget itself. So it'll get to that as we get closer to the end.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to invite us as a community to consider a couple things. We've had a lot of conversation around the amount that our district spends in services and a few other things, and a few different spaces here in our meetings, but in unification meetings and desegregation advisory group meetings. And I really appreciate the request for clarification, and want to just add my voice of appreciation, Dr. Clark, for bringing these numbers out in such a short time. And I think one of the things I want to ground everybody in is the idea that since we are a small school district and we don't have a large school district office, often we have to contract with service providers to do things that other larger school districts would have somebody in-house for, right? If we were a larger school district, we might have an in-house plumber and an in-house electrician or an in-house professional development specialist, or a lot of the different things that you see here, or an IT manager. A lot of the different things that you see here in services really are for us often very necessary expenditures, because we simply don't have the district staff to perform these functions, but they're functions that are essential for a school district to operate. And as we continue to hopefully attract students and families, we still may need some resources to expand things like positions or to support expanded programs. And so I just want to invite everybody to kind of hold that frame as we have these kinds of budgetary conversations. And so thank you, everybody, for your questions, and Dr. Clark for your work.
I've been living that reality with our budget for a very long time, so I don't even have that question anymore.
Minutes, if there's no further questions. Or
No, this is an action item.
This is an action.
Oh, sorry.
And-
Right, but before we take action, we need to bring
Get
it
a
to
motion.
our audience, if there is any intent to speak on this item 10.01. All right. Richard, and can you take the mic, please? No worries, we'll get it
Sure.
filled out
Yeah.
for you. Do you have some extra ones over there, Steve? You got extra cards over there?
Kate, can you get another card for me?
I'm sorry.
Can you
what?
repeat that?
You got to get right on the mic.
It's not on. Thanks.
Slide 15.
There you go.
No, it's working. Yeah, it's working.
You got to get like coronavirus close.
Okay.
Is it in the community budget report or in the PowerPoint?
In the PowerPoint that you had today.
Okay.
Where it showed first approval, first interim, second interim, and the differences.
So that's actually in the community budget report. Mark? It's in the other document, please. For revenues or expenditures?
Expenditures.
Is that the one?
No, keep going back.
That's revenues.
No. There we go. Go back. Okay. What we showed was over $600,000 in terms of increase, but the actual 1920 original budget wasn't 6.5, it was 6.195. And I've never grasped the reason for that. I know there must be one, but
So on the SACS document, then is it okay to respond? So, on the SACS document, you have a total expenditures of 6.195, and then you have to add in the transfers as an expense, transfers out, which is another section below that. That's the total expenditure for the district, which gives us that 6.5 number.
okay.
I did exactly what I did my very first year. I looked at that one line and wrote it and went on, but it's the transfers out which get added on to get that total number.
Okay, good. Thank
Right.
you.
Sure. Thank you. It's a great question.
Kate, I'm gonna botch your last name, but Gothrow.
You won't be the first in my life, and you won't be the last.
I will not.
Kate Gothrow, district parent. So as usual, I just kind of wrote down a few little random things that I was hearing as you were speaking about the budget, and thinking about it, of course, in terms of what's going on at the Willow Creek budget right now, where they have cut, as was said tonight, double digits in terms of staff going into next year. One thing that I was thinking about was when we were talking in the unification town hall, I wanted to get my right town hall, last week, and there was a question about our fiscal integrity group was challenged that the comparison of the other districts that we were using with our very small district here were unfair because of scale issues. And I'm thinking about the loss of $330,000 to Willow Creek based on students exiting. Willow Creek is also a very small school, and to expect Willow Creek to be able to scale with that loss of students in terms of their expenses is no more reasonable than it is to expect this district to be able to scale as per some of the comparisons that we were making using that same logic. So I would challenge that absorption of that $330K of in lieu transfer to Willow Creek, first of all. I don't think I see on this presentation, and I'm sorry if it's just an unfamiliarity, but the insurance fund and the money that the district is holding, and I know is using sometimes for some specific expenses, specifically around the AG settlement, I believe. So if I could just have that highlighted where that is so that we can kind of follow along with what that fund has. Is that this slide here?
Yeah, this is Fund
Perfect.
40. This is where the district office fire insurance money is.
Great, thank you.
Right.
I did hear a couple of other things said. We have a cushion was used.
I'm sorry, did you say that we're using Fund 40 to pay for the Attorney General?
That was my understanding. If that's not correct, then I apologize, but I do know that some funds have come out of this, that this has not been kept intact. That is my understanding. If that's not
Right.
correct, would love to have
Right.
the facts.
Fund 40 is only paying for facilities and what, yeah, right. So inside, what you see this document here, the capital outlay,
Mhm.
those are expenses that are at Willow Creek this last summer when we did the work in the building with the wood repair and the dry rot, also the multipurpose room tables. That's that 211.
Got it.
And then the other outgo, which is It's other outgo, indirect cost, but it really is other outgo. That 193,000 is the COP payment, and that money actually comes from the general fund as a transfer in to Fund 40 to make that payment. But the Attorney General expenses are completely coming out of the general fund.
Okay, I am glad to hear that. For some reason, I had a 300K number. I'll have to go back through my notes. So, but I am glad to see that this is captured in the public presentation and that it will just perpetually, because I know that our group had trouble sort of tracking this money. So, love to see that. But I do want to highlight a couple things that I did hear during the conversation here, which was comment that as a district we, quote, have a cushion and that we need to retain the ability to expand. Those feels like luxuries in this moment in time, and I would challenge that as a concept right now. And that the 112K surplus will probably be higher. Those feel like problematic statements, or at least principles to be holding to again at this time. Dr. Clark, I would like to call out, though, that in terms of transparency, this is a great presentation. Thank you so much. Really appreciate being able to follow along like this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Bennett.
I'm Lisa Bennett. I live in Sausalito, and I'm a CPA, but I'm learning all this stuff, so please forgive me if I'm really asking a question. I'm also a very good worrier, and I worried that when the PSPS happened and children were not attending school, that we would lose revenue because of that, and I thought I heard that the state may have talked about supplementing that. I wasn't sure, and now with, people going nuts with the coronavirus, potential school closures, I worry about that as well. So that's my comment.
So just to clarify, as a basic aid school district, we actually don't receive what is known as local control funding formula revenue based on attendance in the same way that most other school districts receive their revenue. The independent charter school that we authorize, Willow Creek, does, however, receive their in lieu property tax transfer based on attendance in the way that you are asking. And so while there is no revenue loss to the district for things like PSPS shutoffs or any potential school closure related to global pandemics, there could be impacts to schools that receive LCFF revenue based on attendance, like Willow Creek Academy or most other school districts in the state of California. There are only 10% of school districts in our state that are basic aid, like Sausalito, Marin City. There's about 80. And so that's a great question. And thank you for asking it. And I hope that gives you some clarity.
Can I ask a follow-up?
A couple of things to that? Well, you can continue, but just to add, we as a district have some control over what to do in that scenario. And Willow Creek also has control, for example, with the PSPs, both schools added days at the end of the year, which I think make up for that on the funding for Willow Creek. It was for other reasons that Bayside MLK did it. So there are multiple mechanisms to handle those situations. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Trustee Barrow. And there is a waiver process that we could all seek as a district, or as a charter school. The question that is perhaps more connected to your query is around instructional days and instructional minutes, which we are required to be in compliance with, and which we may have to seek a waiver for. We did stay open for many more days than any other school in this county. And so for our district, we would only be seeking a waiver for 2 days.
We already submitted it.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at.
We already submitted that waiver, and so we should be held harmless for that.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Did you have more? Because I started to add when you were.
Well, I had just heard that the state was thinking of supplementing what schools were losing, and if there's any advocacy we need to do, I'm happy to help with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any intent from the diocese? This is,
I'd like to add some comments before we vote.
yes.
I'll reiterate, I think the presentations tonight were great. I thought they were great last week. I think they were improved in short order. I think on the conservative budgeting, or what some people are referring to as a cushion, I'm of mixed emotions on that. On the one hand, it's a great fiscally responsible practice, and every CBO should be asking us to budget conservatively that way. No surprise. I think it challenges transparency, so I think some of the dialogue tonight probably helps with that, pointing out one-time expenses, pointing out the process under which they get revised going forward to be closer to actual, and especially in this time when we've got, effectively, I don't know what we call these groups, analyzing our numbers and trying to make assessments and recommendations. It can be challenging. So, but that really doesn't affect, kind of how I vote on this. It's just more of a dialogue and observation. From a voting perspective, I want to go back to, I fully hope and expect this budget to be revised, as we were discussing last week, once an agreement is concluded between the district and Willow Creek. And I understand why it's not revised tonight, but hopefully shortly thereafter it will be. But certainly in its current form, I don't think this budget does enough to support Willow Creek. I think it's pivoted to the extreme the other way. And so as presented, I still have that issue. And as I've said many times on various versions of this budget, and I may be more alone on this, but I still think we have too much overhead in our budget and aren't directing enough at classrooms, frankly at both schools, because of where we're spending in overhead. And so for those two reasons, I'm going to be consistent in my vote against this budget, and I just wanted to explain my vote before we voted. But I know we have to vote tonight.
Duly noted. That is correct. By the 15th, which happens to be a Sunday, so I think the Marin County Office of Education is going to give us some grace that we get it in on that Monday. We do need to vote on this budget.
I have a comment.
And in that same spirit that you alluded to, the fact that we are in confidential negotiations with Willow Creek, this budget, as it presents itself tonight, can come back in a whole different form. And I am very confident in our discussions with the leadership that will happen. And so I heard in my ear on this side, Ms. Van Oss, you had a comment.
Yeah, please, thank you. I echo everything Josh has said except for the overhead part.
You know I was alone on that.
Yeah, you're alone. And so also I just want to express again my appreciation, Dr. Clark, for bringing this back and giving us the detail. That's helpful, both from a transparency perspective, as well as allowing the board to make the decisions for approval or not. And I echo the sentiment about, well, I understand it's important to create cushions and build in safety nets within the budget. Sometimes it's helpful to quantify what are those safety nets, and so if we look to expand programming or suggest alternative expenditures, we know what we've got to play with. That's a bad word, but we know we've got, sorry, there's a bug attacking me. We know what we've got available should we need to move things around a little bit. And I also do echo Josh's sentiment that while I think you've done an amazing job in pulling this budget together, I'm gonna kill it. I do think my vote would be no on the budget. purely for a philosophical reason, and it is my hope too that that vote would change going forward if we're able to reach a settlement with Willow Creek. So I don't want my vote to make you feel like it's a reflection of your work. Okay?
I'm sure he's not going to take it personally.
Comment? Can
Yes,
I
please.
Yeah. I just want to say that I'm very hopeful going forward that we will have good news. And I also want to remind everyone in this room that I feel that the Attorney General has given us some guidelines, some rules, and I feel that as a responsible trustee, I need to pay attention to those, and that affects our budget.
And Dr. Clark, yes, thank you so much for the work that you've done. You remind me of a 1930s baby, one to look at every dollar. So being conservative definitely matters. So this is an action item. Did you have a comment, Superintendent
I would
Garcia?
recommend approval.
Thank you. If memory serves me, this is a roll call.
No.
Somebody has to make a
Need a motion in a
Somebody
second.
makes a motion. I move
My memory is foggy.
I move the acceptance of this budget.
It's been moved
I'll second.
and second. And it's
All in favor?
all in favor, not a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Opposed.
Sustain? All right. The ayes have it. We're going to move along, folks. For those of you who were here early on to catch the budget that has taken place, it brings us to 7.01.
Not
Int-
true.
Yes, true. Integration Generation Plan.
Okay, gotcha. Good. Excellent.
We just took two things out.
Mark or Brandon, could you pull up the plan? There we go. Beautiful. Thank you. So, as is a requirement of the AG settlement, we had to create a comprehensive education plan for our school district. I have a working title of Integration Generation Plan, or iGen Plan. Just in the interest of time, I will not go through it line by line, as it's
Thank you.
hundreds of pages long. But I'll give you some highlights, and I'll give you those highlights while walking through a few other things. The preamble to the plan and the data in the plan and the recommendations from work groups that are contained in this plan have been presented at multiple other public meetings and are available on the district website online from videos of those meetings. So I'm not going to spend time on things that have been presented in public at length on multiple occasions in the presentation of this plan, even though I presented this plan on Wednesday as well. But what I will do is approach it from a high level and try to give some highlights.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I barely made it through the budget piece. I apparently ate something that's not sitting well with me, so I'm going to excuse myself.
All right.
I may or may not return.
Thank you. And just so everyone knows, Trustee Barrow was at the DAG meeting and also has seen this plan already. So he's not missing anything.
Yes, he is. He's missing midnight being here.
He's not missing anything in terms of the comprehensive presentation of the plan. You can scroll. It starts with an executive summary that
Dr.
kind of
Garcia.
outlines the history of desegregation law in our country and also a little bit about the history of both Sausalito and Marin City. Many folks may not know that Sausalito was founded originally as the only non-Spanish, non-Mexican land grant to an American, first by the Spanish Crown and then by the Mexican government. And it was founded for the purpose of providing fresh water to the tall ships that plied the bay in the late 1700s and mid 1800s. And the reason it was granted is that Sausalito has 6 creeks that run year-round, even in the worst droughts in the state of California, and they are fed by our famous fog. The history that folks may be a little bit more familiar is the history of Marin City, and being founded as a historically black community in Marin County. You can stop right there, Mark. During the Great Migration of African American people out of the South, and in this community particularly from Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi. And many of our current residents, their parents and grandparents were the folks that made that brave migration. Coming west was not that common of a thing. And folks came and folks stayed. And one reason that folks stayed in Marin City is that there was a history of mortgage redlining in this county, and black people were not allowed to buy houses anywhere in this county outside of Marin City. And those things are important to remember as we look at the history of our community and the history of our school district and any plan that seeks to overcome that. While the settlement focuses on what has just happened for the past 6 years, this is really a plan that seeks to address decades of history in our community. And I want to invite everybody to consider that reality as we think about what we can do together. I also want to invite everybody to consider that this is a first draft. The board has an opportunity to provide feedback and comments. The community still has an opportunity to provide feedback and comments. In the settlement agreement, the Attorney General has up to 60 days to provide feedback and comments. And so what I present to you this evening is very likely not to be the final document, but is offered as a synthesis of the work that we've undergone as a community since August, and really serves as a first pass at a vision of creating an urban school district that can serve as a model not only for this community, but for this county, for this state, and for this country, of what a diverse, integrated, inclusive education looks like that delivers on the promise of public education for all of our citizens and residents. And so we have before us a monumental opportunity that I would like to invite everybody to continue to participate in. So, there are some academic and cognitive benefits that we can draw from research that show that benefit all students from being in diverse classrooms. And these benefits can be broken into 3 main categories: academic and cognitive benefits, higher average test scores, higher rates of college enrollment, decreased dropout, increased critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity. Civic and social emotional benefits, such as the reduction of racial bias and stereotypes, higher likelihood to seek out integrated settings later in life, enhanced leadership skills, and improvement of student satisfaction and self-confidence. Indeed, the very skills that are required to become global citizens are afforded to students at diverse and integrated schools. There are also economic benefits. An integrated education is the most highly effective and least expensive intervention to the problem of economic difference in our society. A high-quality integrated education provides the promotion of equitable access to resources and the preparation of students for an increasingly global economy. The old mission of our district said to academically and socially prepare students for success at each grade level and in high school on the path to college and career in a safe, healthy, and culturally responsive learning environment. It had some core values, that diversity was an asset, that we have a social responsibility, that agility, adaptability, and tenacity were important core values, a student-centered education, a focus on results, and the word equity is in the core values of our old mission. And with the intention of honoring that mission and those core values, I would like to present a new vision and mission statement for this plan, and one that we may consider for our district moving forward in the future. And that vision is world-class facilities and educational programs that serve as a model of educational equity, excellence, and integration, and are the top choice for all families in the 94965. Our schools will forge a strong community of global citizens who find strength in diversity, affirm and value difference, and who are prepared for college, career, and a life which empowers all people to overcome systemic barriers and create social and climate justice. In service of that vision, our mission is, in order to achieve the outcomes for students, especially for Black, Latino, English language learners, and students with any learning differences, to meet and exceed the outcomes in the highest performing schools, we will collaborate with our community to create a pre-K through 8th grade dual language, science, technology, arts, and research community school that provides a trauma-informed, culturally and linguistically sustaining, top-tier academic, social, and emotional curriculum that attracts and retains highly qualified staff who reflect the diverse identity of our community, and that ensures a safe and inclusive climate for all. So this report rests on 3 pillars. And those are the development of a preschool program that is district administered, but that is conducted in partnership with all of our current existing preschool providers in the community. So I'm going to say a little bit about that preschool program. The second pillar, and I'll provide more detail, is to talk about the TK through 8th grade dual language STAR Community School part of the program. And the last part of the educational program talks about the People's Empowerment, Arts, and Community Engagement After School program, or what I am calling the PEACE program. And so each one of these points has at least a paragraph, if not a whole page, of description and detail. And in the interest of time, at the end of this meeting, we will post this on the website so that anybody who wants to take a very deep dive and provide us with your comments and your feedback will have the opportunity to do so. But I'm going to keep it at a high level unless any of the trustees or the community members have specific questions, and then I will refer to the more detailed aspects of the plan. So, why would we do something like start a preschool program when we don't currently operate preschools and there is a bunch of preschools in our community? Well, here's why. Part of the settlement agreement is that we need to attract families from all over our community, from a diverse geographic region. And one of the things that I know about attracting new families and stabilizing enrollment to any school or any district is that the earlier that you have a relationship with students and families, the more likely they are to stay. The earlier families know the systems and structures and resources available in a school or a district, the more likely they are to stay. The earlier and for the longer period of time, they know who the teachers are and who the principal is and who the food service staff are, and maybe if we're lucky, who the superintendent is. People tend to stay for a longer period of time. And so the preschool plan is a foundation of being able to attract and retain more families. There are also some very serious conditions around preschool in our community. We have at least 150 families, if not more, in the 94965 with children between the age of 0 and 3. And many of those families are not eligible for the current preschool programs that we have in our community. And so those families have to make very tough economic decisions. Sometimes people have to stay home instead of working to take care of their infants. Sometimes our current families that are enrolled in available pre-K programs have to choose between having year-round childcare or having special education services for their children. These are choices, I believe, that with a district-administered pre-K program, our families will no longer have to make. They won't have to choose between childcare and speech and language pathology. They won't have to choose between not working and staying home. So some of you may wonder how that's possible. There's some new laws in our state. SB 75 became law January 1st. And it says in school districts like ours, if all of the free and reduced lunch Title I families that need free preschool have a spot, then we can give any vacant spots to families who would not otherwise qualify due to the income limits in their household. So we can very quickly provide an option for members in our community that currently don't have one. Furthermore, by having a district-administered preschool class, we can make sure that there's a continuity of special ed services as long as folks that need them are enrolled in that preschool class. We also have another problem. Because we have so many different pre-K providers, we have many different systems of measurement. They don't use the same assessment for the outcomes for students in their programs, or what we call in the education field preschool readiness. And those assessments don't talk to the assessments that we start giving in kindergarten, let alone the assessments that we give in 1st through 3rd grade, let alone the assessments that the state requires in 3rd through 8th grade. And so we currently do not have a system that allows us to measure student achievement in a longitudinal fashion from pre-K through 8th grade. This program would provide an opportunity for us, in partnership with the preschool programs that already exist in our community, to align those data systems and to have a longitudinal data system that helps to identify what students need early intervention and provide it, so that later on in their school journey, they have the same equity of opportunity to access the top tier academics that I'll lay out in the STAR community school program.
So if you need an IEP early on, that'll come out.
Or if maybe you don't need an IEP, but you need intervention in math or intervention in language, we would know that before you get to kindergarten, and we would be able to start applying interventions before students get to kindergarten. All of the research is very, very clear. The earlier the intervention, the more likely of later academic and social and emotional success for any student, no matter the kind of learning challenge present. Also, by us moving into a coordination role and a service delivery role in the pre-K landscape here in Sausalito and Marin City, it would allow us to align our year-long calendars with all of the preschools. It would allow us to align our daily schedules with all of the preschools. Why does this matter? This matters because we could then coordinate programming for all of our students and families so that they would be guaranteed to have year-round childcare even when school is not in session. It means that we could arrange teacher and student success coach schedules so that our wonderful pre-K teachers and classroom aides could collaborate with our TK and kindergarten staff and really create an alignment around social, emotional, and academic curriculum and instruction for students that was coherent and cohesive age 2.5 through 5. And that will plug in to a collaboration and alignment structure that I will talk about K through 8 in just a moment. But it would allow us to really vertically articulate academic, social, emotional learning from preschool through 8th grade. It would allow us to provide enrichment to a much greater number of preschool students in our community. We currently provide music, PE, and art to the Head Start program on our campus, but not to the Learning Center next door, not to Marin Horizon Community School across the street. We currently provide food service to Marin Horizon Community School across the street, but not to Head Start and not to the Learning Center. And yes, Marin Horizon Community School pays for that, just in case you're wondering. But the point for me is much less about generating revenue. Sorry, Robert. The point is about providing organic, healthy, farm-to-fork food for all of our students, not just beginning at the age of 5, but beginning at the age of 2.5, when we know that has the greatest impact on brain development and on healthy eating habits and healthy living habits and on body development, as does art and music and PE. I believe all of the children in our community from the earliest age should have access to these kinds of programs. A few other things that I believe it can make a significant impact on sooner rather than later. When parents have access to the kinds of services our community school offers and the kinds of parent education that our community school offers, not only do you have increased community engagement, but you have increased parent leadership. We can increase the leadership capacity of all of the parents in our community so that they don't start learning how to engage with things like the Parent School Alliance or the LCAP committee or the District English Language Advisory Committee when their kids are 5 or 6, but they start learning about these opportunities when their children start preschool. When we build this capacity for parent leadership from the earliest age, we have a much greater chance of having highly engaged parents all the way through 8th grade, all the way through the educational journey that we're offering. Lastly, I mentioned when I started talking about this idea that there is currently no agreed upon evaluation amongst our preschool partners. There's also no agreed upon indicators of program quality. And by us stepping into this arena, it would allow us to collaboratively with our partners and with our community develop some indicators of program quality beginning in preschool. Kids in our community need the highest quality preschool available. If we don't have indicators of what that looks like, that's hard to deliver. Lastly, expanding this program, attracting and retaining new families, will allow for the expansion of other critically important programs in our community. The next of which is our K-8 dual language STAR community school program. And really, it should say TK through 8, so I apologize for the oversight. That's one edit that's dawned on me already.
That's right.
Our TK program is very important to us, and our TK program is an important bridge between pre-K and kindergarten, and a really critically important part of all of the collaboration and community engagement that I just talked about. So we are proposing the development of a dual language Spanish school beginning in pre-kindergarten. It would start in the 21-22 school year at pre-K. It's very important when you develop dual language programs that you do it meaningfully and carefully, and that you develop a cohort of students that can access that kind of program. So while we would only start the dual language program in preschool 2 years from now, that same teacher would provide Spanish as an elective to older students beginning in that school year. Each year, we would add a grade. So 21-22, we would have pre-K through TK in kindergarten. 22-23, we would have pre-K through first grade. It would take a full decade for us to get all the way to 8th grade. Why is this important? Not only is this important around world language, but this is critically important because students that graduate from our school district historically often cannot pass the foreign language A through G requirements in high school. It's a literal barrier to high school graduation. This kind of a program and the offering of a Spanish elective will situate students when they get to Tam High or wherever they go to be able to successfully pass 3 years of foreign language, at least in Spanish. If we do this well, if we do this right, we'll be graduating students in 8th grade with a seal of bilingualism and biliteracy on their 8th grade diploma so that they can go take a test their freshman year of high school that eliminates the foreign language requirement for them because they're already fluent and allows them to become fluent in a third language. So the STAR component, science, technology, art, and research. The STAR component, the science component of that STAR school will look like a focus on climate science, on earth science, on wildlife conservation. We have a tremendous opportunity that we currently don't access to use the Marin City Pond, to use the waterfront, to use the Golden Gate National Recreation Area to support project-based, science-focused learning. It would also include things such as a focus on other local issues critical to our community, like sea level rise and watershed protection, environmental education, restorative earth science. We'll partner with programs like Nature Bridge at Fort Cronkite and Call of the Sea. I'm really excited our 5th graders are going to go on Call of the Sea next year, but I would like to see this be a focus of study for all grades. The tech focus of STAR will include computer science, virtual reality, coding, robotics, animation, and other STEM-focused subjects that will begin to prepare students for careers in tech and other in-demand careers, like age and stage-appropriate software development, and a humanity-centric approach to understanding and creating new technology. The tech focus will also include technical arts like building trades, construction, education, child development, family services, engineering, design, manufacturing, and product development. The focus will support all of our students to enter and engage with the pathways accessible to our students through our Career and College Counseling Program and our Teacher of Color Pipeline Program, which I will outline shortly. The arts focus is based on the teaching of a dynamic, culturally relevant arts program, including arts in education and arts integration program that brings curriculum to life. The content areas will include the 5 arts disciplines in the state-adopted visual and performing arts framework: dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts. Arts integration will be applied across the curriculum at all grade levels, all subjects, all grade levels. Through our partnership with the Arts Integrated Principal Leadership Network, all teachers in our district have access to free professional learning opportunities in the Integrated Learning Specialist Program and can receive 3 levels of certification about how to integrate arts across the curriculum. The research focus is based on using project-based learning and thematic units that require research, inquiry, and application into complex topics, and will be focused on the following topics: indigenous wisdom, pre-colonial codes of conduct, Native American treaty studies, global connectedness, social and economic systems, geography, world history, world lit, macroeconomics, pre-colonial systems of government, social justice and healing, and ethnic studies. Ethnic studies and cultural studies will teach our students what it means to be human and how we are interconnected with other humans by our actions and choices across families, communities, societies, and our shared planet. Mark, I'm on page 63. Critical thinking philosophies like literature, fine arts, culinary skills, film, theater, fashion, and oral traditions. We will continue with the development of our community school and our family engagement. A community school being both a place and a set of integrated partnerships between the school and other community resources, with an integrated focus on academic services, support, and opportunities that leads to improved student learning, stronger families, and healthy communities. We will expand the work that has been started so strongly this year by our community schools manager. We have launched a Parent School Alliance. We have a 12-member district English language advisory committee. We will create a series of parent education workshops, from parenting classes to resilience to trauma, and an established community-based organization evaluation guide for all of the service providers in our districts. If you can scroll to page 64, Mark, and focus in on the pyramid at the bottom of the page, and maybe zoom in so folks can see that tiny text. Our community school is really modeled on Maslow's hierarchy of need. And so if you look at the purple bar at the bottom, I'll talk you through the different levels of Maslow's hierarchy of need until Mark zooms in and we can get to some detail. But the bottom pyramid is about basic needs, is about food, is about clothing, is about access to health care, is about shelter. And what Maslow theorized is that unless human beings have these needs met, it's very difficult for them to acquire new knowledge or to focus on learning. The second bar, the green bar there, is around the need for safety. And Maslow said once you have your basic needs met, you have to feel safe. But it's not just about physical safety, it's about psychological safety and emotional safety. And only when those needs are well taken care of can you begin to truly acquire new knowledge and focus. The third or yellow bar of the pyramid is about love and belonging. And what Maslow theorized is that when people don't feel like they belong in a community, again, it is almost impossible for them to access new learning or new knowledge. The blue bar is about self-esteem. And what Maslow suggested is that when we don't have a high level of self-esteem, we also cannot access all of the opportunities that education provides. And that top bar is about self-actualization. And so what this graphic that Mark is so diligently working to show us is how the current partners that we already have in place slot in at each of these levels of Maslow's hierarchy of need to meet these needs in our community, and how any new partners that we might consider taking on must also fit this framework. I was at an equity conference at UC Davis yesterday.
67.
Yeah, because I've got lots of time. And one of the things that I discovered is that Maslow borrowed this hierarchy of need from the Blackfoot indigenous nation. And he changed it. And I have been citing this and using this as a framework, but the change that Maslow made was profound. And the original Blackfoot framework was not a pyramid, it was a teepee. It was a teepee. And self-actualization was not at the top of the Blackfoot pyramid. It was the base of the Blackfoot pyramid. Community actualization forms the middle of the Blackfoot teepee. And the top of that Blackfoot teepee was cultural perpetuity. And so that is also an edit that I will make to this document, because I believe that's actually a much more profound application of this wisdom, a much more profound way to organize a community school, and much more relevant for the work that needs to be done in our community. What we need to be focusing on is community actualization and cultural perpetuity. Our community is special. Our community is rich. Our community is beautiful. Our community is one of the most diverse places, not only in this county, but in this country. And that is worth perpetuating and actualizing. And so that's another important pyramid, but that's a little further on in the presentation, Mark. You can find page 60. There you go. There you go. You got it. Almost. So what you see there at the bottom is partners like a health partner, like the Dominican University Nursing Services, who provide hearing, vision, and dental screenings to our students. And the Marin County Office of Education Health Services that provide immunizations and a healthy foods educator and mental health services. And the Marin City Wellness Clinic, who provides physicals. And the Marin County Office of Education, who supports us with backpacks and school supplies, as do the Marin Housing Authority, Cornerstone Community Church, People's Inter-Surtees Fellowship, St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, shoes from the Soul Child Care, Community Action Marin, Head Start, Marin Horizon, food distribution from the SF Marin Food Bank. We still have a need for warm coats and holiday meals, although it was a wild winter. And so anybody watching, if you know of a community partner that might help us access those things, we would welcome that connection. On that second safety pyramid, you see partners like Seneca with who funds our unconditional expectation coach, the Marin County Health and Human Services Department, Safe Routes to Schools, Performing Stars, the Walking School Bus, the Marin County Probation Office, the Marin County Sheriff's Department, Southern Marin Fire, YMCA. They all provide the safety needs for kids in our community. We still have a partnership need for grief and loss counseling. We still have a partnership need for restorative justice. So again, I would use this moment to ask anybody that's watching or listening, if you have ideas around those kinds of partnerships, that is still a great need in our community. You can also see mental health provided by the Marin County Behavioral Health Service. We have a PsyD, a mental health clinician. The SMDT, the Joyful Mind Project that does mindfulness in our school, the Bayside Men's Club from First Missionary Baptist Church, the Marin Community Foundation that supports us with a PK through 3 grant, Horizon Community School, Play Marin, Tam Union High School District. They all support TAM Journalism, Students Organizing Against Racism, TAM High Leadership Class, the Success Network, Eat Soji, Moms Demand Action. Those are all partners that help us form our DLAC, our Parent School Alliance, that contribute to this sense of belonging in our community. And we still have needs. We need counseling interns in mental health service. We need interns for community engagement, for family. We need support for the Family Engagement Network and for Black and Brown parent empowerment, for the development of a PTO. Moving up, you see partners like the Marin City Development Corporation and the Community Services District, Marin Promise Partnership, the Rotary, Sausalito Historical Society, Play Marin, the Chamber of Commerce. They all help our kids with programs that build self-esteem, but we still have needs. We need to develop an asset view of Marin City. We need to develop apprenticeships and mentorships. And then at the top of the pyramid, you have partners that help with that idea of self-actualization. Performing Stars, the Marin City Free Library, Arts Plus, the Hannah Project, Bridge the Gap, 10,000 Degrees, the Sausalito Women's Club, the Boys and Girls Club, Star of the Sea. But this is how we will deepen our community school model. And if you can scroll to the next slide, that's based on the 6 keys of parent engagement, which is from the work of Joyce Epstein out of San Diego State. Yeah. We will focus on parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision making, and we will continue to collaborate with you, our community, to do so. We will also roll out a family, go ahead, scroll to the next. We'll also roll out a family engagement network so that we can engage hard to engage parents. You can scroll down to that next pyramid, Mark. That will include a dual capacity development framework for both staff and parents. So we're really talking about the ability and capacity building of staff and parents to successfully engage with school. This framework's based on the work of Karen Mapp from Harvard, another leader in community engagement. But you'll see that it covers things like family engagement research, developing family-friendly schools, using data to make shared decisions, understanding the school dashboard, understanding city, county, and state governance, public safety, public utilities, health and nonprofit sectors, understanding school board governance. You see there at the top is where both staff and parents get the same training. The idea is actually for our district to be a lead agency in this network, but to do it in partnership with 2 other school districts with historically hard to engage family groups in this county, so that we can create a county-wide family engagement network for hard to engage families, and a county-wide network that shares research and best practices on community and family engagement, so that we are not only impacting the outcomes of our kids and families, but those in the rest of the county. You can go to the next slide. It's very important to highlight the College and Career Counseling Program and the Teacher of Color Pipeline. The College and Career Counseling Program and Scholarship are mandated by the settlement agreement. The Teacher of Color Pipeline that we have constructed is something that has come out of numerous recommendations from the community and from surveys. But working jointly with this array of partnerships, the Marin County Office of Education, E3, the Marin Promise Partnership, College of Marin, 10,000 Degrees, the Hannah Project, Dominican College, the University of San Francisco, UC Berkeley, and Cal State Teach, we will provide 3 pathways to grow the number of teachers of color in Southern Marin. This is a partnership that will provide teachers of color not only for the Sausalito Marin City School District, but for Tam Union High School districts and Mill Valley. So in those 4 credentialing programs at Dominican, USF, at Cal, and at Cal State Teach, they will place credential candidates that they already have on an intern credential in our district, or place candidates they have for teacher residencies in our district. You will see the fruits of this as early as next school year, with a large number of additional people who are either working on an intern credential or who are about to become eligible for intern credentials, coming and working, supporting our teachers and supporting our students. One of the best things you can do to screen, attract, and retain high-quality teachers is to see them at the early stage of their career with your students and your families. But that's not all. That's just the immediate placement option. All of these credentialing partners have also agreed for any of our current staff that are not credentialed teacher, or any member of the community that has a BA, that they will accept them into a credentialing program and help them on their path to getting a teacher credential. We have 3 current student success coaches that could become teachers with a little bit of support. Lastly, this creates a pathway for the students named in the settlement agreement. We have partnered with 10,000 Degrees to administer our scholarship, and I'm very excited that the Career and College Counseling Program at College of Marin Compass will administer our Career and College Counseling Program. Nationally, 50% of students who drop out of school do so before high school. The other 50% drop out of school before 10th grade. So waiting until 9th grade to start this kind of intervention means we miss fully 75% of the kids who need it most. So this college and career counseling program in our district will start in the 4th grade and will open 3 pathways for our students. One, as I already outlined, to be a teacher. The other is an administration of justice pathway, so that perhaps one day the Marin County sheriffs that police this community might be people from this community. And lastly, it will create a pathway for careers in tech that will support our STAR program and also access to a tremendous amount of economic opportunity available here in our community. So we will provide opportunities for students that have graduated from high school that went here for the past 3 years, and any student that attended our district schools between 2013 and 2016 to access this college and career counseling program, to access this scholarship, and to get the support of going all the way from an AA to a BA to a teaching credential, so that they can one day come back and teach in our community. I was never able to do it as a principal. I was never able to do it as a teacher. It's a great blessing for me to do it as a superintendent. But the more that we can support people from this community to become teachers in this community, the better off all of our kids and families and school system will be. This graphic shows how our pipeline will on-ramp onto the pipeline that's available in the county and carry people not only through pre-service teaching, but all the way through the first few years of their career. Most teachers, 50% of teachers, 50% of people who become teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years. And so it's not just about getting people into the classroom. It's about supporting them through that critical first 5-year period so that they stay. I really appreciated what you said about retaining high-quality teachers in our community. I too believe it's important, and I think we need to look at some other things that have yet to make it into this plan, like housing. Right? The best way that we can make sure our top-quality teachers stay is not only to make sure they have jobs, but to make sure that they have a place to live as well. Because we have one of the top salary schedules in this county, and most of our staff cannot afford to live in Marin. I talked a lot about curriculum and vertical alignment with the pre-K program, so I won't belabor the point, but the focus of what our two TK through 8th staffs, you can scroll up, Mark, will be doing is we'll be creating professional learning communities that engage in continuous cycles of improvement, or what we call cycles of inquiry, and developing formative and summative assessments on social, emotional, and academic units of study and lessons that feature topics that align with STAR. So we'll have a PLC that's pre-K through kindergarten. We'll have a professional learning community PLC that's 1st through 3rd. We'll have one that's 3rd through 5th. We'll have one that's 6th through 8th. And they will all work to develop assessments, units, and lessons based on the topics most relevant to their grade level. But then at several points throughout the year, we'll get together and make sure that what's happening in the grade spans below and what's happening in the grade spans above is aligned and coherent and carries children all the way through pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. One of the other mandates is how we'll attract single subject credentialed teachers. I really appreciate all the questions about staffing, and what was glaring from those answers is there's no new single subject credentialed teachers in the plan for next year. And that's true. And that's because we will have 13 7th and 8th graders next year. That's not enough to staff a single subject credentialed teacher. And so we're working with our partners at Compass and at College of Marin, and they have agreed to try to align their professors' schedules, their math professors and their science professors' schedules, to come and collaborate with our teachers to provide this level of education for our 13 7th and 8th graders next year. The following school year, we are projecting to have 20 students that would require 2 sections, and our hope is to either share a position at Tam High or at Mill Valley Middle, or just hire our own single subject credentialed science and math teacher in the 21-22 school year. So I'm going to transition away from the STAR program to the Peace After School program. If you'll scroll down one more page. The difference is that we would move to a district administered program that would set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, make responsible decisions, and understand and manage emotions. By having a district administered program, we can align what we do in terms of culture and climate in the regular day with the after school program. Same behavior expectations, same referral procedures, same incentives, same consequences, same expectations from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This would also allow us to have direct supervision of staff and program components like doing mindfulness like we do during the regular day and after school. Having Harambe's with a daily opening circle like our summer school partner Freedom School and Hannah Project do. Having daily affirmations. Having a peer conflict program called the Junior Peacemakers. Once again, the acronym PEACE is People's Empowerment, Arts, Community Engagement After School Program, the PEACE program. So we would be expanding the number of positions that we have in our district. We'd hire a PEACE director and 3 PEACE leaders. We would also be able to ensure that the academic interventions that we have during the regular day happen in after school. K through 2, the Smarty Ants program, iRead, System 44, Read 180, Dreambox. In partnership with some other community organizations, we will have an arts enrichment after school program. Our staff will be responsible for homework and athletics. Our community partners will be responsible for arts enrichment. They will offer things like dance, music, theater, hip-hop arts, visual arts, digital media, and skill building, youth voice, leadership, healthy choices and behaviors. We'll be able to continue to vertically articulate our Conscious Kitchen program into after school. We'll be able to ensure a high-quality after-school program staff by making them district staff. Those of you interested in the details, there's schedules and costs and attendance-taking procedures. Whatever you want to know about how this after-school program will run is highly detailed. The Peace after-school program, integrated into a community school, seeks to bring together and align essential resources to support students and their families in a safe, healthy, culturally and linguistically sustaining environment that affirms and validates all members of our community and builds healing and stress resilience with a balance of a focus on social, emotional, creative, physical arts, and academic skills to ensure our students have all they need to be successful throughout their lives. We will continue to take advantage with collaborative partnerships with Marin City Free Library, Bridge the Gap, the Community Services District, Conscious Kitchen, Performing Stars, and other new community partners. I'm excited to say that the Shakur Foundation has pledged $25,000 to support this program. We will also be using the ACES grant funds that we get from the states to support this program. I will continue to seek philanthropy to support this program, and we currently allocate a significant amount of general fund money to support the contract with Boys and Girls Club that will also go to pay for this program. I do believe we can greatly expand the quality and offerings of our after-school program at little cost to the district, and I believe I can even make it revenue neutral. There's a few more components. Long-term program leadership, the establishment of a pre-K program, and we will be including a large part of what I outlined for you in our PK through 3 grant with the Marine Community Foundation. So we're actually looking at a great expansion of grant funds from them. It's possible they might not cover it all, and I will have to make some contingency plans if they don't, but we're going to ask. I'm happy to say that for the first time ever in our county, the directors of Head Start, Community Action Marin, Marin Horizon Community School, Marin Promise Partnership, Early School Readiness, the PK3 Grant Administrator, and many other people have been coming to regular meetings at our district as part of a PK through 3 advisory board to help us implement this program. And they just all recently made some commitments to continue to develop and implement this program and share data and do a lot of the things that I laid out. Part of what we're going to ask for in that grant is staffing of teachers, of student success coaches at the pre-K level, and we're going to ask for support around the data system and a pre-K coordinator. Pre-K coordinator position will provide long-term program leadership for our pre-K position that will hopefully outlive many of us. In terms of the leadership of the STAR program, with your grace, the superintendent and the CBO and our M&O director will be in our 2nd year, and our principal will be in his 4th year next year. Our community school manager will enter his 2nd year next year. By establishing a peace director position and bringing this program in-house and making that person a district employee, we also believe that we have the ability to establish long-term program leadership in after school. We will continue with our work around culture and climate with positive behavior intervention systems, restorative justice, and cost We'll be looking at developing our multi-tiered systems of support for next year. Our Tier 1 systems are getting pretty robust. We need to start looking at developing Tier 2 systems like check-in, check-out, like a sensory room. Those are all things that we have planned. We also are excited that we will be bringing in Dr. Sharaki Holly from the Center for Culturally Responsive Teaching and Learning to support with professional learning next year. We will continue to expand the arts integration professional learning opportunities. We'll develop a site equity action team. We'll continue on with program marketing. As I mentioned, we are currently focusing on accepting out-of-district transfers as a school district of choice. For the first time ever, we'll actually get some money for those kids. In particular, we'd like to focus on transitional kindergarten and middle school students as a way to build out our programs. And we are also looking at entering into a new interdistrict transfer agreement, although now that we've been awarded a school of choice, we actually don't need to do that. Kids can just enroll here, basically, as long as they fit certain criteria that the board will need to put forward. We will continue with our trauma-informed practices professional learning with Seneca, continue with mindfulness, continue with Readers and Writers Workshop, continue with Courageous Conversations, along with the 2 additional professional learning opportunities that I outlined. Facilities are really an important part of this plan. The board approved a exploratory project to look at installing solar and EV charging stations and backup power at the last board meeting. So really excited about both of those things happening on this campus and the Nevada Street campus, so that hopefully in the not too distant future when we have a PSPS, there will be no lost days of school because we will have lights. And maybe we can encourage people to have a greener commute if they can charge their electric vehicle at both of our school campuses. We will continue working with our facilities master planner to look at the development of what other kinds of facilities we might need. For instance, we will need to invest in the development of pre-K facilities, which could include modernization or replacement of existing modular classroom space, or the conversion of existing classroom space in the current elementary wing, or the development of new pre-K facilities. In order to support the development of our STAR program, we will develop existing classroom space into a STEAM lab. The addition to our current facilities of a performing arts theater, music recording studio, music and dance rehearsal space would support our arts integration plan, as well as giving us physical facilities to support peace program activities and community and family engagement. Things like the development of a gymnasium and the revitalization of the ball field, a parent center, the development of a district office, board of trustees meeting chambers, and an M&O warehouse and staff housing on a parcel of land owned by the district next to the school would support community and family engagement and support the district's ability to effectively administer and maintain all programs in this plan. Obviously, those things we don't have resources for, but I think they're an important part of the plan. And I would invite all of our community members to think about how we could support the development of those kinds of facilities so that we can offer the world-class programming that our community really needs. Lastly, I'll talk a little bit about some ways that we might fund some of these things. We still have some eligibility in the school facility program. If we matched $313,000, we estimate that we could get another $469,000 to modernize or enhance existing school facilities. I know everybody thinks Prop 13 is dead in the water, but it hasn't officially been a no. But if it does not pass, our current bonding capacity stands at about $54 million. And I would invite us all to consider how we might come together to support the passage of a bond that could generate up to, $56 million for facilities improvement in our district.
40 million.
That wouldn't be enough to cover all of what I laid out, but under our current debt limit, our gross bonding capacity is a little over $56 million. We have about $15 million of outstanding bond indebtedness that I'd recommend that we pay off if we were to pass a bond like that, which would leave us with about $40 million for facilities development.
100 and
Also,
page 100.
Yeah. I know.
there are a lot of new programs in the governor's budget to support the kinds of things that we have laid out in this plan. If we do them well, we should be well positioned when the RFPs come out to apply for those things. The RFPs probably will not come out until the middle of the next school year. So we've got time to continue to do some planning and development to become eligible for $900 million in teacher education development and retention, for $300 million in grants for local education agencies supporting innovative community school models, for opportunity grants totaling $300 million for the state's lowest performing schools and districts, for $15 million in computer science grants to support teachers in earning computer science credentials, for $75 million in preschool program and facilities development grants to provide for the funding and the construction or modification of preschool facilities to serve students with exceptional needs, and for $60 million of school nutrition grants to increase reimbursement rates for the training for food service staff and for the expansion of a farm to school grant program, of which we currently have the original and probably best model of how to do in our district. So that will conclude my overview. And as I said, we will post this on the website, so any of you that want to take a very deep dive into the nitty-gritty can ask questions and share ideas. I know that over the next 60 days, this plan will grow and change significantly, and there's even space to add a plan to unify both of our schools. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Are there questions from the diocese?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I want to commend you on a fabulous job. This is...
It's a lot of work.
I'm excited, and I wish I was a kid again to participate in all of this. So amazing. It's incredibly exciting, fabulous programming. I can't wait to see it in action. So thank you very much for that. I chatted with you beforehand. I wasn't sure if this was a draft or a final. I have a slew of just tick-tacky edits and whatever. We'll meet later. But I have just some kind of conceptual questions in just a few of these sections. One of them is in the attract new families, stabilize and enroll, has to do with SB 75, and that's board packet page 57. And I just want to understand one of the sentences in there. I don't know if we can get to page 57 in our board packet, not the...
I think I can pull it up for you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's preschool. It's the report page 57 also.
So let me read the language while he's looking and see if I hit on what you're asking about.
Well, the one sentence I have, it says, this bill authorizes providers operating a state preschool program within the attendance boundary of a public school where at least 80% of enrolled pupils are eligible for free or reduced price meals to enroll 4-year-old children meeting specified priorities. My question is around that 80% enrolled pupils eligible for free or reduced lunch. Does that mean the district needs to be 80% in order to be eligible under this program?
Correct.
So if we were a unified district, we likely wouldn't meet that criteria.
Under our current configuration, we are eligible. Unified.
Base item, okay, yeah.
Unified, that might be more challenging. There is a lot of legislation right now that is being proposed that not only will change the landscape of pre-K, and so I think this is a step in a direction that the state is going to go. But you're right. We are currently eligible. Unified, this might be a little more challenging. However, the benefit of having a district-administered pre-K program in a basic aid school district is that we can still braid funding sources that are available for pre-K and do things like make sliding scales for families.
Right.
So it doesn't,
Preclude us from doing
unification
that.
doesn't preclude us from doing
No,
this.
yeah, and I just wanted to understand that this may be a barrier, albeit temporary, if we were to unify and didn't meet that criteria, but there's alternatives. Okay.
Good question.
See, I read the thing, front to back. My other question has to do with the dual language Spanish immersion program, and I didn't see in here, but I'm glad you mentioned. In here, I read that it was starting in pre-K, TK, going through 8th in a 10-year plan, but that we're recognizing that this program is important for high school readiness. So I'm glad to hear you say that we would also include an elective in 8th grade, perhaps in year 1. So I don't see that in here, but it'd be helpful to include that in here.
I will indeed, thank you.
I thought I read that Spanish would be offered to middle schoolers, like currently.
I think
Did I not read
I think I
that?
put it in there, but I'll check.
Okay, well then I may have missed it, so my apologies. Under the PEACE program, and it says that it wouldn't be offered on days that school was not in session, but for professional development days where parents might need childcare coverage, perhaps offering camp days or some sort of alternative, and maybe that's also on a sliding scale as well, or it just becomes part of the program. Because just because school isn't in session doesn't mean parents don't have to work. So it's a nice offering.
Thank you for that. As a matter of fact, in other districts where I have worked, where the district administers both pre-K and after-school programming, they indeed offer summer and winter session and spring break programs for working
Right,
parents.
Yeah, and this was specifically about days that there might be professional development with no school or early dismissal to offer some sort of childcare coverage during those times. I also it did mention the ACES program. I know the ACES grant has a lot of very specific requirements, not just around attendance, but around programming. So it might be helpful to add that this program would adhere to the ACES grant requirements. And I know they have a certain amount of homework hours and certain types of programming you need. So the ACES grant is actually pretty specific.
Absolutely. The most of the text of what is in this comprehensive plan is actually the
From
text
the
of our
ACES
ACES grant application.
Well, then
You're
just
uncovering my dirty little secrets
Oh,
of how I get
sorry.
things done.
So I thought I read it somewhere. No, just kidding.
On par.
Yeah, and another point for the PEACE program, while we may not implement this currently, I think it's more for unification point, which is parent funding through either a sliding scale. Currently Willow Creek offers free aftercare under ACES, but I think also reduced lunch. Folks may pay a certain amount, whereas those who aren't eligible may pay a different amount. And so that would provide supplemental funding for the program. And I don't know if parents within the school, I know everybody's now accustomed to free aftercare, but if we get into a funding shortage for this program and we're trying to prioritize and we don't want to hit this program, consider at least introducing the idea of some sort of parent funding.
Thank you.
Just a couple more points. in the inter-district transfer section, and maybe I missed it, I didn't see discussion about the school of choice, so maybe add it, throw it in there. And then facilities, I didn't see a discussion about some of our assessments of our current facilities needs, as well as, and we could, certainly that's around upgrading the facilities in order to provide enhanced, at least baseline and enhanced programming while we're doing those upgrades to maybe take it to the next level, not just baseline upgrades. And I have many more comments, but that's the top ones for now.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
No,
What's that?
thank you. Thank you. I think it's
Oh, yeah.
it's really exciting, and I guess I also really wanted to clarify on the single subject teaching that if we were able to unify faster, then we would be able to have enough kids in middle school to handle single subject.
We would. Maybe we'd even have some single subject credentialed teachers.
Indeed.
What she said.
I have
Brava.
just one question about the arts, and I have not gone through this with a
Can you use the mic?
fine-tooth comb, but you're talking about arts being integrated into the classrooms throughout. Does that, I'm not clear how then specialized art classes outside of the core curriculum become a part of the school.
Oh, that's a good question as well. It's both and. It is both and. When you have an arts integrated school, the idea is that arts are used as an engagement and comprehension and representation strategy across disciplines, but doesn't mean that we're not offering specialized arts programming or music or specific theater programming.
That'll be obvious in this
I
report or not?
will make it more
Okay,
obvious.
Excellent, thanks.
Yeah, I had the same question, Deborah, but I think it got satisfied when I read that about the current art program. And I'm sorry, Ellen, the name of the
Arts Plus.
Arts Plus. That's right, they changed the name recently. But we've got that plan in place, which includes specific individuals for
Yeah,
the different
but
levels of art.
I want it to be a part of this,
Yeah, I think it is mentioned in here,
but not necessarily. in
but
this.
specifically, no, I'm saying I had
Yeah.
the same question, yeah.
Amazing.
Itoko, can you remind me of our time frame in getting this comprehensive to the AG?
Yeah, the AG has had it for a week. We were required to send a copy to the AG and the monitor a week in advance of this day, and I was able to accomplish that. So haven't heard any comments back yet, but I'm sure we will. One of the other questions from the dais last meeting was whether or not we needed to take an action or needed to approve the plan. And I went back and I read very closely, and the specification is that it's presented at a public meeting. So I believe actually we're in compliance with the AG settlement. I think the next steps for us are to make sure that when we adopt an LCAP, that it's an LCAP that supports this plan. And I think that'll be the action that is required. The other requirement in the settlement agreement is that this plan actually start happening July 1st of this year. And so, I don't know, Tarina, if you have anything to offer being
About whether it needs to be board approved.
Mm-hmm.
It was always my impression that it needed to be board approved, but I do know that it says presented.
Yeah, my recollection was that it was prepared by the DAG and presented to the board, but not board approved. Yeah.
I mean, I think once we get some more feedback and get to a little bit, get to a more final draft, we might want to take an action or pass a resolution or something of that nature. But I do think as long as the plan is fully reflected in our LCAP that we adopt and approve, that will suffice.
And
Thank you.
I don't know if this was just an oversight. I think it was supposed to be provided to the public a week before it was put in the board packet.
Not an oversight. We presented it at the DAG a week ago.
Ah, got it. Okay. It's just that I got it last night for the first time and read 333 pages in one night.
Did you miss the last DAG meeting?
I did. Yeah.
Watching.
Other comments?
Well, my only other comment would be, this has been, I really hope that we'll get the beginning and the end of this on the video and encourage people to look at your presentation, because it was really quite wonderful and compelling and exciting.
Thank you. Any intent from the audience to comment? Please, sir, come take the mic and I'll add this to your card.
Thank you. Tom Riley, Sausalito resident, also city council member. I also want to commend you on a wonderful comprehensive education plan. I've read it 3 times. I've heard it presented twice. I will commend you on your passion, Superintendent. Your passion brings life to a document, which is very hard to do, and we also need that passion in a leader that you display, so thank you. I will call out, what I loved was your focus on music, the arts, dual language learning, the importance of food and meals. What I'm concerned about is the budget we passed tonight on a 3-2 vote will have us laying off a music teacher, arts teachers, a Spanish teacher, and food preparers. I think it's a big mistake. And I hope, and I'm inspired, Ms. Green, with we find a path forward, that this is not the budget we live with. That we have a budget that saves our teachers, because we're going to need them in this new unified school. We have a budget that saves our students, because we're going to need them to have a well-integrated campus. And so I have hope that the budget was voted through today is not the budget we have going forward, so we can have a well-integrated, very diverse school that teaches our kids multiple languages, that feeds them well, that teaches them music and arts. And we do it with teachers we know today that live in our community. Our teachers who feel at risk have to find jobs by the end of June if they don't have them with us. So they're out looking for jobs now. We can't wait long to keep these great teachers. So that's all I share with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Duly noted. Any other comments? We are going to move on.
Can I just share that I think everybody on this board absolutely agrees with you and hopes that this is not the final budget, either the Willow Creek budget or this budget, absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for coming tonight and speaking to the board, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you've just said.
Absolutely. It looks dire, but again, we have been in communication, and so we hope that the olive branch that has been extended will be well received.
I have one more question. Where did the heading integration generation plan come from?
Did you hear that question?
Yeah.
I did. One of the DAG members that was helping to make some last-minute edits said, should we call it something better than a comprehensive education plan? And that's what I came up with. But, again, totally open. If someone's got a better title or name, please shoot it forward. I felt like it has a little bit of a double entendre, right? It gets at the why of the plan. It gets at the generation of kids that I believe this community sincerely wants to produce. Generation means 2 things, though, right? It also means the creation of something. And so it speaks to both of those ideas. And shortened into the I generation has a has a third meeting, which I think we're all Apple-rich device aware of. And so it doesn't have to be the final name, but I figured it was better than comprehensive education plan.
No, I like it, and you may want to consider including just a short paragraph on what that means and how it inspires the plan, or it has been inspired by the plan.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, I am almost certain that I did a faux pas in the fact that we should have brought out 8.02 before your integration generation plan. However, charge it to my head, not my heart.
No,
But I'm so
fine.
glad that we went in this order.
No, you're
So,
fine. You're fine.
I am for now. So, 8.02, the minutes.
So we go from the high vision to the mundane. But since I'm not, I'm not really clear on how the minutes are to be regarded when we have the whole thing on video, but there are a few things that I think need to be modified in the minutes. And one is in attendance, Josh Barrow was there. And in also my one moment of fame, when that trustee Green turned the meeting over to my chairing it, should be at some point in the report out of closed session. I also think that we went round and round about the agenda reorganization, and I think that it would serve us to indicate that item 8.03 was actually covered in the superintendent's report, because we didn't really remove it from the agenda. And I really get, having gone back and looked at the video, why this was confused, because we were all confused. But the main thing that got me was we'd say that trustees Huff, Green, and myself abstained, and we just didn't vote. It was such a messed up moment.
Is that where I withdrew my motion?
Yes, and
So that's what should it be said?
well, yeah,
Yeah.
it should say that you withdrew your motion and that you two voted against it, and I don't think the three of us did anything.
Is that before I left?
No, you were there.
I
You left at 7:15, which is, I don't know, that's in the minutes, but you, as you can see, you're included in those who abstained.
I'm not
So-
sure we actually ever called a vote.
We did.
And we
'Cause
voted no?
You and Josh voted no, and the rest of, and anyway, it's just a confused moment, and I don't see, everybody's leaving. So I don't know what we have to do.
As they should.
As they should, I just as soon leave too. But I was in,
I forgot the part where we gave everyone in the audience a $100 gift card to save to Starbucks, but that's all right.
So, in terms of, I completely don't know how to resolve the issue. I don't know if you can just say there were no votes and then no others. I don't know. So, but,
What item are you talking about? I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through this document.
Oh,
I can't even track where we are.
under the reorganization of the
It's on
agenda.
the front, it's on the first page.
First page.
Reorganization of agenda.
Yeah.
So it wasn't was it withdrawn, or was it that
Yes,
there was?
Caroline withdrew it,
Okay.
but Superintendent Togo said that we had to vote on it.
Okay.
And so that's what happened. I mean,
Okay.
it's not a big deal, except that if we're going to have, we
So-
should find a better way to represent what
Would
happened.
it be wise to go back and look at the video since it is live
Yeah, I mean, I did it.
and make those
I
changes?
still couldn't figure out. And, yeah, and I think we should also say that 8.03 was covered in the superintendent's report, because we did not remove it from the agenda, and it was a big deal, so,
Wes.
sorry.
No, it's good to catch it.
I mean, the only thing that got me was I have not abstained because it means something that I'm not entirely clear on, and so that's what really caught my eye, besides the fact that Josh was here and not named. So I'll give you my notes. So,
So let's revise and bring it back.
yeah. Right.
So do we need to put a motion forth on revising the minutes?
No, I
No.
It's okay, can I ask a
just-
question? You can just give us direction to do it. But there is a line that says obligation to and support for Willow Creek Academy with my name on it. If we put 8.03 on to that line, because that's really where the minutes of the discussion.
Where is that?
In your superintendent report?
It's not in my report.
Oh.
It's just, it's like, it says, it's after LCAP, it's after my
Oh.
report, and then it
Uh-huh.
says LCAP update. And then it says obligation to and support for Willow Creek Academy, which is really the item 8.03.
Oh, yeah, right, sure.
And then that discussion is actually
Good, you're right, that's exactly right.
covered.
That's where it is.
So if we fixed the motions, could we just attach 8.03 to that line? Would that meet?
Because it's there, it's mentioned in the minutes, you don't, yeah. I mean, I don't, yeah, works for me.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what the change would be. Are you talking about in the first sentence, Dr. Garcia spoke of his intent, blah, blah, blah?
Yes.
It would be taking the Superintendent Garcia recommends to pull 8.03 from the agenda and merging it with the minutes of the discussion that we actually then had on 8.03.
Got it.
You just then lose all that other stuff.
Well, you wouldn't lose it, or we would replicate it. We could do it twice, right? Because there's a recommendation to pull it, and then we pulled back from that.
Yes.
And then we actually had the item, and then we had a big discussion about it, and there was a lot of public comment, and so maybe it's just replicating the heading, but leaving the to Trustee Turner's point, making sure that Turner, Green, and Huff are not recorded as.
Abstain.
Actually, there really was no vote because the
We withdrew.
the motion was withdrawn, and so I
Right.
think that's how it should get recorded.
Good, because there was a procedural question as to whether we
Yeah.
had to vote on it, and we didn't, so good. That's a
We're on
good
the same
feeling.
page now?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay.
All right.
Besides that, and then
Sorry.
Josh's name as present.
Yes. Good.
So the motion got a second.
Correct, it was seconded, that's what
Right.
it was.
Got it.
But instead of, I can take out the abstained names on here, because it's not technically abstained, you're right, it's just a no vote.
Yeah.
We did get two no's, so I can make that change.
Okay.
Okay, great. Good.
I just have one other silly edit. Under the LCAP update, it says trustee Van Alst commented on how the surveys show the teachers have never been to the campus they don't teach at. I don't think I would speak that like that. So been to the campus where they teach.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so we will update and bring back.
Thank you.
I love that this has become so intimate now, with absolutely
Really?
nobody in here. Okay, let's just chug along. We are on 9.01.
801, a consent agenda.
Oh, yes, sorry, going back. Yes, we have the consent agenda before us, 8.01.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, it is, it's consent.
Roll call.
Aye.
Ms. Turner, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Hoff,
Yes.
Ms. Van Alst.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Getting ahead of myself here. Why? Because I'm trying to get to 11.
Yeah. Oh, we got one more thing.
9.01.
Two more.
Two more. Oh, yeah. Three more.
Three more.
Safety plan.
Dr. Garcia?
Yes, I would recommend approval. It is the certificated seniority list, something that we need to be updating every year. We have gotten feedback from SDTA as to its accuracy, and so I do recommend approval.
In all my years, I've never seen this before. At least I don't remember it.
Yeah.
So nice work bringing us something that we
Thanks. I'm
probably should have been doing.
going to have some evaluations for you too this year.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to why Mrs. Banks she is within her leave still? She requested a leave of absence, but this clear multiple subject looks like it may have ended March 1st. I'm a little perplexed.
Just to be clear, when as part of our collective bargaining agreement, our teachers have the right to take a sabbatical or a leave of absence.
Yes.
And they remain in our employ until they either come back to work or tell us that they no longer want to work for our organization. And so since she's not in front of kids, she has until the first day that she would be in front of kids to renew her multiple subject credential, which expired March the 1st, which expired 2 weeks ago. Thanks for catching that. We'll reach out and remind her she needs to do so. Luckily, in 2020, it's a log on to the California Teacher Credentialing website and pay them some money, especially when you have a clear multi-subject credential like Ms. Banks.
Wonderful. Any other observations, questions? It has been requested to approve, a recommendation to approve.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Brings us to 9.02. Consider approval of notice of recommendation that services shall not be required. Is that you, Dr. Garcia? Or
It is. I do recommend approval at this time, just to verify this is a layoff notice and not a final layoff. And the reason that we're required to do this is this position is grant funded, and just due to some vagaries of the Marin Community Foundation grant cycle, we will not know if the grant funding is renewed until May. Luckily, we'll know before May 15th when we would need to make any layoff final. I do anticipate that we will get the grant funded and be able to proceed, but until we actually have a confirmation of the grant, my recommendation is that we give the layoff notice just in case we actually need to process the layoff.
So do you know if Mrs. Kelly is looking for another position while you're waiting for this layoff notice?
I don't believe so.
So are we killing two birds with one stone here? Also the notice of possible change in assignment for Mrs. Keenan?
Yeah, so again, this is connected to the seniority list. So while we would be laying off an instructional coaching position, if we were to move forward with the layoff, it would affect the least senior teacher. And so that is why the need for a reassignment and a potential layoff notice.
Which brings us to the point as to why we had this resolution before us last week and passed the resolution.
Yes.
Thank you. So it's been recommended to approve.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Is it a resolution?
No, the resolution.
The resolution, we did that
We already
last week.
approved it, okay, my apologies.
No worries.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Thank you. We're now on 10.01. Oh, we already did that.
Okay.
Okay.
10:02, consider approval of Sausalito Marin City School District Comprehensive School Safety Plan.
I do recommend approval. I just want to point out, in the rush to get everything ready, there was a little formatting issue, so Steve has fixed that and has given you hard copies of the fixed formatting issue there before you. On the first 20 pages of the plan. I brought this back. You had a first read last week?
I think it's last week.
I feel like it was Tuesday, but anyway. And so I made some additions. There was a request to specify where the training plan was for this, and I would direct everybody to page Oh, it is really hard to read this with the formatting sideways. Page 90 and 91, or 90, sorry, page 1993. Page 93, that's where you'll see the professional development plan for the implementation of and training of staff to implement this plan. So Trustee Barrow asked for that clarification, and I just want to affirm that it's there, laid out by month and by activity.
I'm not seeing it at 93.
Page 90, sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry, page what?
90.
yeah, there we go.
It's entitled the School Emergency Planning Calendar. And then there was an ask to update the influenza pandemic with some corona information, and that also was done and was added to page 168 or 169. I'll just find it to make sure.
I think we're going to, I saw something on pandemics.
Looks like we.
There's pandemic influenza corona.
Yep.
I see it at page 154.
I think we may need to, we might need to correct the table of contents. It looks like it's been, I don't know what happened in the formatting, but it looks like it misaligned the page numbers.
There's a little gremlin
Yes, it is.
there.
It's off.
Kind of messing with things.
154, and it's, yeah, this document is kind of off.
Just page break stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I would move approval, but it's off, so I don't know. Maybe I'll pull it, or I'll move approval with corrections.
Yeah, move approval with corrections.
I will move approval with corrections.
Yeah,
I
I'll
think,
second.
I don't see anything substantive that needs to be corrected in
Right,
it.
it's just formatting.
I'll second.
It needs to be done, and
So it was move approval with formatting corrections, and Bonnie moved, Caroline second. Taking a vote. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Moving along. OMG.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Don't even need a motion. It has been moved and second to adjourn this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Sleep tight.
Night.
That was
Thank
a
you,
long
everybody.
Special board meeting.